Welcome to The Faithful Steward. This is a podcast all about sharing biblical wisdom and practical insights in order to help church leaders pursue and teach financial freedom as part of Christian discipleship. We believe this is a spiritual conversation, and this is a place where the church needs to lead the way in order to move our communities forward in how we steward God's resources. I'm your host, James Lenhoff, and I am so passionate about this conversation and helping leaders have the confidence to step into it. We believe that if we help people thrive financially and grow spiritually, it changes everything. And I am so excited to join you on this journey. This podcast is brought to you by Good Sense. If you'd like more information about what we're up to, you can go to our website at goodsensemovement.org. All right, let's get started with today's conversation. Well, happy Valentine's Day. If things go according to plan, then this podcast should be coming out on Valentine's Day itself. And I hope you are having a great Valentine's Day. And in honor of that, we thought this would be a great time to kick off a series where we're going to talk about marriage and finances. You know, how do we bring faithful stewardship to our marriage? How do we engage in walking this journey of faithful stewardship as a couple? And this is a really hot topic. This is always a point of contention. We talk about money being the main reason for divorce. You'll see headlines for that all over the place. I have worked with lots and lots of clients over the years, and I can tell you it was never the money that actually caused any of that. It's most of the time just a lack of ability to do conflict. It's an inability to see things as one, to come together in partnership. That's something that actually goes beyond just the financial aspect of the relationship. More often than not, what I see is that people have not been able to do what Scripture tells us they have to do, become one. Whether it's because they haven't left their father and mother, they're still connected to them, they still think we have to do it exactly the way they do it, or maybe even financially they're dependent on them still. They haven't left those families that they started in and become their own new thing. They haven't decided intentionally to become one. And that goes across all kinds of different aspects of how that shows up in the marriage. But one of the most painful and obvious ways that it shows up is in money. That's why money, quote unquote, is the number one reason for divorce. I think it's actually just the most painful and obvious expression or example of lack of oneness. And so we're going to talk about how to actually move more into this experience of oneness when it comes to your finances. And I think one of the biggest hurdles to get over is just starting in a place of acknowledging that that's our goal. I see a lot of couples, particularly now, because people are waiting longer to get married, they are establishing mine. I have my assets, my car, my house, my stuff, my career, my paycheck, my title, my identity. And then they become this married couple that is a bunch of mine and yours. The conversation gets split into, well, I brought this to the marriage. I saved before we got married. I had this stuff as an individual, and so I deserve to keep it. I deserve to spend it however I want. Or on the other side of the equation, maybe they didn't have very strong financial disciplines before they got married. And so if you have debt, that's yours. If you bring a problem into the marriage, that's your problem. You have to fix that on your own. I'm not helping you with that because you brought it with you. And if I have an asset that I had before the marriage, that's mine. And I get to keep it and I maintain authority over it, and you have nothing to do with it. It's not going to benefit you because you didn't save it. You didn't work hard to build it. It's mine. That mine and yours mentality is so pervasive in marriage relationships. And yes, it does tend to come out in money, but it's bigger than that. That in and of itself is actually, in my opinion, the number one cause for divorce. It's just that the conflicts that spring up from that mine and yours argument a lot of times center around money because that's where we feel it most readily. There's actually a survey done. 38,000 couples were surveyed, and the couples that had combined their finances and were thinking entirely as one, they were happier on average than the couples that stayed separate. And that makes sense to me. By definition, when you have drawn these lines of mine and yours, you are also by definition drawing lines of isolation. So this is mine, you can't have any. I'm going to enjoy it by myself because I saved it or I built it. So you're not invited. Or that problem, that debt, that's yours. And you're going to have to figure it out on your own. You're going to have to pay it off entirely by yourself. None of my stuff can be used for your problems. And so you feel intensely alone in the pain of those problems. The beauty of moving from mine and yours to ours is you never feel alone. By growing in our oneness, we grow in our ability to function as a team, to think together, to work together instead of constantly finding reasons to pull apart. And so I am a huge advocate for unifying and combining resources and thinking, more than anything, thinking, these are ours. Nothing is mine. Nothing is yours. It's ours. Now, the next step, which is a much bigger hurdle to climb, is to get to a place where none of it's even ours either. It's not that it's mine or yours versus ours. It's not even ours. It's God's. That is actually the ultimate step to take to get to a place of freedom. But then our job is to work together as a married couple to make decisions on how we will steward God's resources. This idea of keeping things separate, it can't work. At some point, someone is making really hard decisions. Someone is deciding what house we're living in. Someone is deciding what school our kids are going to. Those actually affect everything. And yet we end up in this situation where we're making joint decisions about the entire family, but we're then paying for them separately. I've even seen couples splitting cable bills and grocery bills and mortgage payments, and they really are acting like roommates rather than soulmates. They're not actually moving towards each other. They're staying very much separate. And a lot of that can be rooted in control or fear. A lot of it is built in from families that we grew up in. We kind of bring that with us a lot of times. Those are all really hard things, but they're the work we have to do to be able to step into oneness, because that is actually the biblical vision for marriage, is this sense of oneness. You cannot have your finances experienced separately and also have oneness. Those are mutually exclusive. So if you are a couple that has been thinking mine and yours, what I want to encourage us to start to do is move towards ours. And we're going to be talking a lot in these next couple of podcasts about how to do that. But one of the most important places for that is to track things as if they're all one, move to singular bank accounts and think of your full net worth as a family, one report, one total that is ours. Our debt is ours. Our resources are ours. We are moving towards this experience of all of it is something we share, the good and the bad, so that we don't feel alone in it and we don't feel like we get entitlement to it. Those are the two pieces that we have to fight against. I deserve and no one's helping me, right? Those are really, really difficult and destructive trajectories to get on. And the mine and yours always land there. They have to. They don't have a choice. And so when we get to ours, everything is ours. We can move to a place of collaboration and teamwork rather than individual work. How do we do it? Well, let's talk about a couple of really easy steps. And this is something that would be really important for your communities. If you're leading your communities and you're teaching on this, this is a topic that is risky to teach on because we are kind of putting our foot down. We're saying this is what it should look like. And that's always a scary thing. But I feel really confident that this is the right answer. I feel really strongly that not only does Scripture tell us oneness is the goal, but all the research tells us oneness is where happiness and delight and connection and a richer relationship are found. And so we need to move our people in this direction. One of the most important pieces for this is to build out a shared vision, a shared understanding of what we are trying to accomplish. A lot of times what we end up with in couples is what I like to call the go and the woe. And the go, they are super excited about some big idea or some direction they want to take everything, and they just start to run in that direction. And their assumption is, we're fine. We can afford it. We can do it. Let's just do it. Let's take the vacation. Let's do the thing. Let's start the project. Let's, put the addition on the house. Let's just spend the money. And the woe says, we're not fine. We're in trouble. We need to scale back. We need to spend less. We don't have enough. And those two always come together as a couple, and they always end up wanting to be in that mine and yours camp. The go just wants the stuff to be mine so that I can spend it and have fun. And the woe just wants the stuff to be mine so that I can protect us from your spending tendencies. And so we end up in this battle that's rooted in the fact that neither one of those people actually has a vision for where we're trying to go together. They're always fighting against each other and pulling against each other rather than seeing where we're both trying to get and pulling together in the same direction to actually accomplish that goal. And that takes a lot more work than just establishing a spending plan, which is a huge help. It's more work around our priorities and how we actually think about our future. It's getting some direction from an advisor that'll help us know how much do we have to save and how much debt do we need to pay down and how does this need to look so that we're both operating off the same sheet of music. We want to give couples a framework that helps them move to a place of shared understanding, because when they have shared vision and understanding, then they're attracted to it. They're willing to do the work. They both see the value of what we're trying to accomplish, and they're willing to make the sacrifices necessary to achieve those things. They're willing to move in that direction and do what it takes. When they haven't caught that vision, then they're just attracted to whatever is most important to them in the moment. And so for the go, that's excitement and entertainment and fun. And for the woe, that is security and safety and provision. Those two are always diametrically opposed until they have something in common to aim at. That's when we move from mine and yours to ours. Now, as a side note, really important, I also recognize that there needs to be space for mine and yours. We have things like my friends and your friends, and there are things that we will always want to hold space for that allow us to know where I end and my spouse begins. If everything is overly done in this union focus, we lose some of the space to actually be ourselves and get to make our own decisions. And so one thing that's really helpful with that is to have all of our resources aimed at our targets, at our goals, at the things we are most committed to, and also carve out some space for mine and yours. Carve out some opportunity for me to decide I'm going to spend a little money on this because I want that. And we don't have to check in on that. And so a great way to do that is to actually have separate joint checking accounts. They're still our money, but it is a spending account that we can go and we can spend without having to double check with each other. And we just fund a little bit of money into each of those accounts so that we get to make our own decisions. We get to do things without totally having to check all of those things together. But that's a small part of the total, and it's still ours. We're just giving each other the ability to have autonomy and authority to make decisions on our own and just get to do things I want to do. Those are all healthy, but they fall apart if that's the entire relationship is built on that type of structure of mine and yours. Carve out a piece of it, but have everything else be aimed at ours. That way, We're setting up families to be aimed at something they've mutually agreed is beneficial and will lead them in the direction they actually want to go. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Faithful Steward podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for links and other information that we mentioned in today's episode. Also, be sure to check out our website at goodsensemovement.org to get all the resources we offer churches to help equip them in teaching financial stewardship to their community. If you have any questions or any topics you want to make sure we cover on our show, you can email me at jameslenhoff@goodsensemovement.org. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you all have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.